Hey guys, welcome to Dogforge. My name's Paul, and today we're going to tell you something a little different I don't think we've really done before, and that is a retroactive look at 5e design. Specifically, today we'll be taking a look at the capstone for every class, with a little caveat there towards the paladin, and we're going to be asking certain questions. We're going to be basically taking a look at, is the capstone thematic for that class? Is it mechanically effective for that class? And probably the most important one is, does it feel good to use? Or would it feel good to use when you eventually get there? So, without further ado, let's get into it, and we will be doing this in alphabetical order. And if something happens to be out of alphabetical order, that's my disclaimer. Here we go. So we're going to start off with the Artificer, our most recent class, but our first just being called the Artificer. Soul of Artifice. You have developed a mystical connection to your magic items, which you can draw on for protection. You gain a +1 to all saving throws per magic item you are currently attuned to. If you are reduced to 0 hit points but not killed outright, you can use your reaction to end one of your Artificer infusions, causing you to drop to 1 hit point instead of 0. Now, this is frankly fantastic. At this point, you can have 6 attunements going on, and there's really no reason why you shouldn't have six attunements on all the time. Even if your DM is not one for handing out many items, they only really need to hand out 1 or 2. Seriously, I mean, you could make your own magic items with your infusions to fill up your attunement slots anyway. And when you know that this amazing ability is right around the corner, if you're lucky enough to play through Tier 4, it's just a no-brainer. So, is it thematic? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that you are a master of magic items. You are drawing the energy from the magic items to protect yourself, and that's cool. But you haven't made anything. That is probably... and you can fluff this so that you've created some kind of, I don't know, belt buckle that harnesses the power and covers you in a protective shield or something, but as presented, it doesn't give you a new ability to proactively use. It isn't giving you obvious cues for you having made something. So is it thematic? Kind of. Is it mechanically effective? 100%. Getting a potentially a +6 to all of your saving throws, on top of whatever your stats and existing saving throw proficiencies provide, and then potentially on top of up to a +5 from Flash of Genius, is absolutely insane. It is absolutely insane, and there's no reason that this doesn't apply to death saving throws, which makes them ludicrously easy to pass. And then you can have up to 6 uses of Relentless Endurance back to back. One important thing to note is that there is a distinction. You're not ending your attunements necessarily because you're ending your infusions. If you have your attunement slots taken up by campaign loot, then you're actually able to maintain some of your magic item effectiveness whilst shedding infusions that might have been out of combat primarily anyway. So this is a fantastic ability, and would it feel good to use? Yeah, I think this would make you feel like a badass, quite frankly. Being able to wade into anything and just shrugging off these high DC saving throws, because at this level, the DCs are probably going to be like towards 20, into the 20s, depending what you're fighting. And this level of bonus is absolutely huge. This, combined with what is going to probably be a high AC on whatever Artifice you're playing, is going to make you feel like an absolute tank, even if you didn't intend to build yourself that way. And that feels great as a player. You not only feel safe, but your party members will feel safe looking at you. As long as you are up, there's going to be hope. So, starting off strong with a great capstone from the Artificer. Next up, Barbarian with Primal Champion. quite simply, you hit 20th level, you get +4 to your strength and con, and it raises your maximum to 24. So you can get, if you've maxed both of these out up till this point, you can potentially get a +7. Is this thematic? Very. I would have liked to have seen this go a little further and also boost your dexterity, because between medium armor or the unarmored defense, the initiative, dexterity saving throws, the barbarian is still heavily tied to dex, and Conan, the archetypical barbarian, it was not just a muscle-bound warrior, he was also very dexterous, light on his feet. So I would have preferred if dex was thrown in as a third thing. I don't think that would have broken the bank of any balance. Is this mechanically effective? Yeah, to be honest, it really depends how you've built your barbarian, how effective this is going to be. If you've maxed out your strength and you get that, extra +2, the +2 damage per hit is going to be nice, but you're probably not going to notice it that much. It's going to be best if you've taken Great Weapon Master and now you can use the -5 and still have a reasonable modifier of, +8 at this point. So that is the primary thing for strength. Or if you have a grappling build, it'd probably help you more reliably grapple ridiculously strong things. The Constitution is probably a bigger one, as at that level it's going to give you an extra 40 hit points, which, depending on what type of barbarian you are and what type of monsters you're fighting, could realistically be 80 hit points in practice with your resistance. So, effective, kind of. And that's one of my criticisms of this. If you don't have those scores at +5, then this second half right here, you don't touch it. I mean, yeah, like your maximum is 24, but I mean, Constitution is probably the easiest one for this to fall into. You're probably not going to touch 24 unless you've been intentionally building for that high con. And even then, whilst this is great and this really breaks the bounds of what everyone can do with stats, at the very least I would have liked to have seen dex here and all of the wide-reaching effects a higher dex modifier has. Just because raising your stats is a very passive benefit. This isn't something you can proactively use, and that ties into, does this feel good? It'll probably feel good when you first get it. It'll probably feel good if you are aware that that extra 40 hit points is the only reason you're still alive, taking punches in the face from a demigod. But in general, it's a very passive background increase to your character. It's overall a fairly solid capstone, but it could be more interesting, and it could be a little extra. Moving on to Bard, and we are going downhill. When you roll initiative, you get 1 Bardic Inspiration left if you don't have any. That's awful. That is absolute trash. 1 use. By 20th level, you probably have a +5 Charisma. So this is the first of this kind of formula of ability, and it's going to fall into 2 problems. One Bardic Inspiration die is nothing, really. If you have gotten yourself into a situation where you're in a fight partially depleted, 1 is going to be better than nothing, but you then have to choose, do I want to use my subclass ability, which pretty much all of them require, or do I want to inspire somebody to potentially get off 1 hit? And 1's just not enough. I don't see why this couldn't have been 2 or 3 at the very least, but at this level, maybe give them an ability where, similar to the Warlock we'll come across later, where you spend an action, you get all of them back. Because you have to have none left to get it. If you have one bardic inspiration left, you might find yourself just like, well, should I spend it so that I'll get it back anyway if we have a combat? And you end up inspiring somebody and that ends up timing out anyway, and then... Or you have 2 left and this never sees use. It's a terrible, terrible capstone. It doesn't go far enough. It's kind of thematic, but it should have just been better. It should have just been better. This is awful, and touching more heavily on fixing these capstones, which is what we're going to be doing in the course of this video as we go along. Yeah, I think I would personally prefer just having the action to refresh all 5 of them. It gets a little samey based as you go along, but if you're a bard and you know you can blow through all of your inspirations, because you have that safety net of getting them all back, and you can flavor getting them all back as some kind of, you know, ridiculously difficult expert level guitar hero solo, you're gonna feel cool. Your party is most likely going to benefit from all the inspirations you've been dropping in one form or another, and you're going to feel like the pinnacle of a bard. So I would most likely change this to being an action to get all of it back, but at the very least, if you want to keep it the same kind of formula, 1 is not enough. Make it probably 3 minimum to actually get some real use out of this. Cleric is an interesting one, because Cleric, you just automatically succeed at Divine Intervention. Is this thematic? Being able to call your god and guaranteed getting an answer? Yeah, that is incredibly thematic. Is it mechanically effective? I don't know, because it is entirely up to the DM. The effect of any cleric spell or cleric domain spell would be appropriate. So this really depends on your DM. This would feel really good to use as long as your DM gives you a good effect. But I can also see it putting DMs in a difficult position where suddenly they now have to jump out of their evil villain head and be their cleric's god, and hey, they're using their capstone ability that they can only use once every 7 days, which is a very weird arbitrary limit in D&D. So what do I give them? Do I throw out a 9th level spell? Do I just flame strike the mooks? I think this is good, but it's very problematic in just the very nature of how Divine Intervention works. I get why the cleric is built this way, but at the very least, some more guidance on how the DM uses this would have been much more preferable. I don't think this needs fixing necessarily, but definitely discuss with your DM what kind of things would be appropriate for your cleric and your god ahead of time. That way, you're not going to be disappointed, hopefully. Next up we have the Druid and Archdruid. At 20th level you can use your wild shape an unlimited number of times. Additionally, you ignore the verbal and somatic components of your Druid spells, as well as any material components that lack a cost and aren't consumed by the spell. You gain this benefit in both your normal shape and your beast shape from wild shape. So, this makes Moon Druids stupid broken. Being able to just shift from one elemental form to another elemental form, it can very practically just be unlimited hit points. That is a very real risk you run with this, because that is extremely poor design. It would probably make you feel epic, but it does feel like a misdesign rather than intentionally feeling awesome. Otherwise, it will certainly feel thematic. Being able to just shift in and out of animal forms as you see fit feels like a very druid thing to do, but practically how this is going to work with Tashes, onwards, druids, is that you're just going to always have access to your abilities. You're always going to have access to your fire companion, your starry form, whatever. And I can see that being nice. It's not necessarily improving those things. This is primarily really a benefit for a moon druid. The spellcasting thing can be nice if you find yourself preferring to have a shield and a shillelagh infused staff. That really helps with the component juggling you might have to do. But overall, this feels very eh. If you're a moon druid, this is super great. If you're anything else, this is honestly a powerful ribbon and quality of life improvement, and little else. So this definitely needs to be changed, in my opinion. But how to change it specifically is going to be very divisive. I don't think that this is... I think this could almost be better suited as being able to summon or turn into a more powerful form. I think that would be a more appropriate use of this capstone. But the simple reality is that, especially now they're using wild shape as a resource for other things, is that this is just really too vague for a benefit for most druids. So yeah, I would probably make this like a more powerful summon spell or something like that, because this is very meh unless you're a moon druid, in which case you'll probably get bored or feel guilty about using it at some point. Next up is the fighter, and this is just an improvement of extra attack where you get your 4th attack per turn. Is it mechanically effective? Kind of. If you built around Great Weapon Master or Sharpshooter, yeah, you're going to get an extra weapon dice modifier, magic item stuff, plus 10 damage. That's nice. It's not show-stopping. It's very in line with the fighter being reliable, I think. But to be honest, I don't like it. I almost wish that the 4th attack changed places with the 2nd use of Action Surge, which I believe comes in at 18th level, 17th level. So I would have preferred if you got the 4th attack at 17th level, because it is very much just a gradual increase, and then your capstone be like Action Surge for the 2nd time. It's still powerful enough to warrant being a capstone, let's be honest, especially if you've already got 4 attacks. Making 8 attacks minimum is going to be absolutely insane. But since you're moving that to being a capstone, I would say you could also throw something in it like you gain a 2nd use of Action Surge, and if you use the Action Surge for the attack action, all attacks you make with that action have an additional +2 to hit and damage. And that is going to be a big dollop of damage. An absolutely big dollop of damage. Ties into the +10 feats and ties into just raw damage. I think that would be better. I think it'd feel good. I think it's going to be very personal whether or not a 4th attack feels good. Some people might just feel that sense of content doing that all day, every day. But you also don't get the show-stopping fancy thing you get to pull out when you need to. So I would personally swap those around, maybe enhance the 2nd Action Surge. Monk, and we have another problem. So, similar to the Bard, when you roll initiative and have no key points, you get 4. So, let's tackle probably the bigger problem here, which is 4 key points. For anyone with a little bit of OCD, let me highlight the entire word. So 4 key points is just not enough. At this level, your maximum is 20. And let's get to the crux of the issue. If you have started a 20th level encounter with no key points, 4 key points is going to be giving somebody that's come out of the desert like a sip of water. Oh, it's great. I didn't have any water before, and that's better. But I'm still really thirsty. Let me put this into perspective. Some of our more recent monks, the Mercy Monk, the Astral Monk, they each get a capstone ability. That capstone ability requires 5 key points. Now, of course, PHP predates them, but in my opinion, Perfect Self was purely based around guaranteeing you can use Empty Body. It lines up. They might have also done something like ensuring you can flurry once a round for a 4-round combat. That might have also been part of the balancing of that, but 4 key points just frankly is not enough. This, again, an action to just get all of your key points back would probably work just fine, but let's try and keep it within here. There's no reason why this shouldn't just equally proficiency and just get 6 key points back. Even if it was just bumped up 2 key points to 6, you know, the examples I gave, Mercy Monk, Astral Self, they're going to be able to use their capstone abilities and then still flurry. Now, all the other monks can still, I mean, let's take a Kensai, you can sharpen the blade to a +3 and then still use Deft Strike and Flurry and your other abilities a decent amount into combat. 4 key points is not good enough. And that is the main crux of the problem with this capstone. Bump it up to 6 minimum, but to be perfectly honest, 10, just giving you just half of your key points back, would be far more satisfactory. And I would lean, actually, if you want to be more conservative, you're running a high level game, you want to change the capstones around, you want to be conservative on the balance, just up it to 6. But if you're not trying to be so conservative, or if you want it to be like a really high powered and dangerous game, make it 10, because it's such a piddly amount. As for the other issue, when you roll for initiative and have no key points remaining, 20 key points per short rest is a lot of key. Spending all of your key is no small task. You have to almost intentionally try to do it. And that really highlights the issue with this kind of thing. It's trying to make it so that your amazing abilities are always available, but in practicality it puts you in an awkward position where you might have, going from the raw version of this, you might have 3 key points. And now you're like, well, I should really just spend them on something because I'm going to get more from the capstone. And that feels very gamist. That doesn't feel badass monk. That feels like you're having to get the most out of the system. So I'm not a fan of that. And if you're not using the Tasha's optional rules to get that empowered healing self-heal ability, it's not even easy or intuitive to burn those key points. So I'm not a fan. Increase the key. Paladin is more complicated because paladins get their capstones from their subclasses, and if I went through every single paladin subclass, we would be here for a very long time. And I don't have that much water or coffee. So we're just going to touch on the general design principle and take a look at some of the PHP ones. I will say that, in general, I am more lenient on the criticism of more recent paladin capstones because they use a bonus action to activate. Any ability that requires you use an action to activate it better be damn good. I mean really good, because unless you're a fighter or you have a fighter dip, you're likely wasting most of your turn just turning it on. And whilst it was really cool and suspenseful watching Dragon Ball Z as a kid and seeing those week-long power-up montages, spending an entire turn doing that and then getting smacked in the face, not so satisfying. So let's take this first one. This is the aura. This is the Oath of Devotion. You emit bright light. Any enemy that starts within that light, so 30 feet, takes 10 radiant damage, and for the duration you have advantage on saving throws against spells, specifically spells, by fiends or undead, and you can use that once per day. It's awful. There are some situations where this would be good, but an aura of 10 damage is something that you would really get the most of in a minion heavy fight, or you're fighting a horde. And even then, 20th level 10 damage, unless somebody is using, your DM is using the minion rules from 4E and they're 1 hit point apiece, 10 damage is barely going to touch them. So that just feels bad. Advantage on saving throws against spells cast by fiends or undead. That should just be advantage on saving throws imposed by fiends or undead. Then all of their abilities fall under that blanket. It becomes much more useful, especially now that we're going to the new design where, and maybe they'll fix this in 2024 with a new page B, who knows. But now we're moving away from monsters having a whole bunch of spells to make them easier to use for their CR rating by DMs. This is just not good. That's not good. I'm not personally inclined to make this radiant damage huge, because that can become quite an issue, and to be honest, it becomes arduous for a DM to track that damage every turn before they've even done anything. But at the very least, I would improve this to just be all features. You know what, yeah, let's just change that to all saving throws imposed by fiends or undead, leave the radiant damage alone, and make it a bonus action. Make it a bonus action, and let you spend a 5th level spell to do it again, which is something that other paladins do anyway. But let's take a look at an example where it is 100% worth it. It's going to take an action again. This is the Oath of the Ancients. It's going to take an action to do it. You get a very primal, druidy almost transformation going on. And at the start of every of your turns, you regain 10 hit points. When you combine that with the 15th level feature that you drop to 1 instead of 0 the first time a day, that's a huge durability buff. And then whenever you cast a paladin spell that has a casting time of an action, you can use it as a bonus action. That validates the action cost of this ability right there. What I have personally done when using this subclass is just activate it, bonus action, Destructive Wave, or bonus action, Death Ward. Then somebody has to take you to 0 3 times before you drop, cutting through all of your regeneration in the meantime. And then on top of that, because in my opinion, these warrant it. That right there warrants it. But it goes even further, and enemies within 10 feet of you have disadvantage against your paladin saves and channel divinity options. We won't say anything about the channel divinity of the Oath of the Ancients. Let them have their moment in the sun. But just running up to somebody, activating this ability and giving them disadvantage on Destructive Wave, or on another turn, disadvantage on a Banishing Smite, that this is a fantastic capstone that is more than worth an action. The only thing that I would change about it is, again, spend a 5th level slot to do it again, but this feels powerful enough that once a day even is not that bad. It's not that bad. we'll take a look at the Oath of Vengeance one just to round it out. And again, a lot of the later Paladin subclasses resolve a lot of the issues here by allowing you to do it again and by making them a bonus action. But a 60-foot flying speed, wisdom save against frightened, and attack rolls against frightened creatures have advantage. This looks good on the surface, until you realize a lot of creatures are going to have immunity to the frightened condition. And that is where this suffers a little bit. The Vow of Enmity gives you advantage on all attacks against one creature anyway. Just make the advantage separate from the frightened condition and just give them advantage on attacks. It feels appropriate given what their Channel Divinity is, and it makes it worth the action. That is the only change I'd make here. And even if you made this a bonus action, I still don't think tying the advantage to the frightened condition is worth it. Especially since the Conquest Paladin exists. So I would definitely separate the advantage out from the frightened, and Bob's your uncle. Moving on to one that's a little harder, the Ranger. So 20th level, you become Unparalleled Hunter of your enemies. Kind of. And once on each of your turns, you can add your Wisdom modifier to the attack or damage roll of an attack you make against one of your favourite enemies. You can choose to use this feature before or after the roll, but before any effects are applied. This is horrendously bad. So not only does this double down on the nicheness of the PHB Ranger, you have to be using this against one of your favourite enemies. It leans hard into the madness, the multi-attribute dependentness of the Ranger by you need to have a good Wisdom modifier to benefit from this. And even then, it's once per turn and they make you choose an attack roll or a tiny amount of damage. That's awful. That is not an unparalleled hunter. That's a kind of really clunky homebrew boon somebody's given you. That's awful. And there are some people that defend this. There are some people who think this is a really good ability. And they might even present a whole bunch of math to support that. I'm sorry, it's just a bad ability. And one of the big reasons that it is a bad ability is that it forces you to have a good wisdom. You need some degree of wisdom if you're in a multi-class. You ideally should have some degree of wisdom just for your spell save DC. But to get the most out of this, you're going to want a +5 wisdom. And most rangers aren't going to want a +5 wisdom. They're going to want to spend their ASIs on other stats or feats, most likely feats. This should, especially with how things are designed now, I'm tempted to just, if we're trying to salvage this mess, strip out the Wisdom modifier, make it a proficiency bonus. It's an automatic 6. It improves it all a little bit anyway by moving it from a maximum of 5 to a guaranteed 6. I would also make it the damage on every attack you make gets that damage. So every attack you make against a favourite enemy, hey, +6 damage. And once per turn you can add on a +6 to the attack. That feels 20th level kind of powerful. It's still awful that it's tied to your favourite foes. You have to have a significant amount of buy-in and work with your DM to make sure that a lot of the PHB Ranger feels good with the foe mechanic. If you use Tasha's favoured foe, this gets significantly more workable. If you're using favoured foe, which is a separate brand of garbage, then this is a lot easier. And just by making the changes I said and using Favoured Foe instead of Favoured Enemies, that makes this a more workable capstone. And probably mostly kind of makes Favoured Foe worth using your concentration. Sidebar, free fixing advice, that ability does not warrant concentration. Rogue. So we've been a little bit down in the dumps for a while, so let's go back up again with a stroke of luck. 20th level Rogue, if your attack misses and it is a miss, then you can just turn it into a hit. Guaranteed turn it into a hit, or if you fail an ability check, make it a 20. As a 20th level Rogue, it probably doesn't even matter what the DC is. It's a 20 plus your modifier, plus proficiency or expertise, you're probably going to pass it with a 20, even if it's some ridiculous tier 4 DC. And you can do this once per short or long rest. I'm a little torn on the usage of this. The effects themselves are fine. Once per short or long rest is a little restrictive. It helps that the rogue only has one attack, mostly only has one attack, and so that helps, that most definitely helps. However, at minimum, how I would tweak this is letting you benefit from each of these things once per short rest, at least. That way you're going to get a lot more thematic joy from it. It's going to feel a lot better, because ability checks, attacks, they're really separate things, and as a rogue you probably want to feel good at both of them. So that is primarily the change I'd recommend for this. Either that, or just make it proficiency bonus, and then that gives you some flexibility at least, even if it theoretically lowers the total amount of uses, but I don't think you're going to get 5 short rests in a day anyway, normally. So, good feature, especially when you combine it with some of the other subclass abilities. I would just let you do it both. Sorcerer. Awful. This is not, let me clarify, this is not a monk problem. 4 sorcery points, in my opinion, is in some ways more impactful than having 4 key points. But for the sorcerer should have had a sorcery point recovery mechanic from before a short rest built in from day 1. From level 3, 4, 5 even. It should have happened. They don't have enough sorcery points. And 4 sorcery points, it's not limited to your first short rest, it's every short rest, but 4 just is not good enough. I might be at the very least make it 6. Again, just pump it up to 6, or make it your charisma modifier, so it's likely going to be 4 or 5. But as it is, this is lackluster. It's lackluster, and it feels like a feature they should have had much earlier by default. But yeah, I personally give sorcerers the ability once per short rest, or one short rest per long rest, like Arcane Recovery anyway. But if you're just using the rest of the sorcerer class as is, just make it 5 or 6 or charisma modifier. At the very least, that's a little bit more impactful. The fact that this isn't limited to 1 short rest is better, but I don't think this makes you feel epic. I don't think this makes you feel epic at all. Improving it would do better, but only if you are entirely tapped for the day, and drawing on this energy is what lets you cast that spell or apply that, clutch meta magic. only in those extreme situations where, let's be honest, harvesting your own spell slots or just saving some of your own sorcery points would have done anyway. Only in those extreme situations do I think this will make you feel awesome. It feels good, it's quality of life improvement, but it doesn't go far enough by a long shot. Warlock. And this is a long video, so I apologize, but I need to take a quick sip of water. This video is not sponsored by the Water Cartel. So, at 20th level, you can spend a minute entreating your patron to gain all of your expended spell slots back from your Pack Magic feature. That's amazing. I don't think this needs to be fixed. Spending a minute to get 4 5th level spell slots back. That's a lot of magic. That is a lot of power. And since it only takes a minute and does not specify that it eats your concentration, you can cast a spell that requires concentration and then get all of your spell slots back whilst you're still concentrating on that spell. This is fantastic. 100% firmly like this. Wizard. Signature spells. Choose 2 3rd level spells in your spell book. They then become always prepared, quality of life improvement. They don't count against the number of spells you have prepared, just again quality of life improvement. And you can cast each of them once at 3rd level without expending a spell slot, once per short or long rest. No, this is bad. This is bad. I'm sorry. This is effectively giving you 2 extra 3rd level spell slots per short rest. I don't think this is interesting, and that's partially the fault of the wizard class. The wizard class as a whole, as a base class, is nothing but spellcasting. It doesn't change spellcasting in any way, it's just spellcasting, and it's boring. And this is made worse by spell mastery. Spell mastery, you get a 1st and 2nd level spell, and you make them cantrips, essentially. Like, that's amazing. That makes you feel like a wizard. Like, and the fact that you can change them, that makes you feel more like a 20th level wizard than being able to cast Fireball and Slow an extra couple times does. I'm sorry, that's terrible. And what would I do to fix this? I don't know if... No, I do know. Just using spell mastery but with 3rd and 4th levels is not... I don't think that's good. I think that is not only bad, but if you are the type of DM to world build and have 20th level NPCs, then that has just ridiculous implications, connotations for your world. I would probably make this a spell slot recovery mechanic, maybe, or simply choose a spell and once per short or long rest you can cast that spell at its highest possible level for free. So yeah, you cast Fireball, but you cast it at 9th level and you're going to get like 14d6 damage out of it. I think that feels more epic. Being able to take a spell and without even eating into your own spell slots, just supercharging it and throwing it at somebody, that feels more awesome than this. And that is a little bit of a bummer, but that is what we will close out on. Overall, the capstones in 5e are a mixed bag. I think the Artificer and the Paladin subclasses show that they are getting better at this. They are most definitely getting better at doing this kind of thing, and I am hopeful, I am apprehensively, cautiously hopeful that 2024 will be better. But that's just what I think. What do you think of the capstones in 5e? What's your favourite capstone? What's your least favourite capstone? And what are some capstone homebrew fixes that you like to use? Let us know in the comment section down below. Whilst you're down there, hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. If you're not already, why not hit that subscribe button and that notification bell? Every subscriber does help greatly grow the channel, and we do appreciate it. But until next time, I've been Paul, and I'll see you at the Forge.